Emil Guillermo. Oh, there's the music. I gotta fire the band leader. He missed the cue. Hey, it's Emil Amok's Takeout. I'm Emil, the aforementioned Emil Amok, Emil Guillermo. That's my name. This is the Takeout, our takes on all things considerable. And there is a lot of stuff today. There is a lot of stuff today to talk about. I mean, Nick Kristof, the New York Times is venerable liberal columnist. He's leaving. He's running away from the best job in journal. Oh, maybe it's the best job. It's one of the best jobs in journalism. It's a good job in journalism when they say, "What do you think?" And you just sort of like, "Here it is." You, as Red Smith would say, you open up a vein and there you are. And Kristof was always good with veins and facts, and except one time when we kind of publicly tangled, 2015. But that's a long time ago. But we'll talk about that. Kristof's running for governor. We'll talk about that. Meta. Oh, Meta. Meta? That's a meta joke, right? I mean, meta is sort of this self-referential, overly self-aware kind of thing. Meta. That's the new Facebook name. I mean, do you think if OJ called himself Timmy Smith, he'd be less guilty? I mean, I don't know. Meta. Facebook is changing its name because I guess like Google and Alphabet, right? Although Google is still Google, but Alphabet is sort of like, well, it puts them up the food chain to the A's, right? Alphabet. Meta, oh, that drops Facebook down to the M's. I don't know. We'll talk about that. Big deal about the Build Back Better. A lot of drama on the House today. Biden is going off to Europe, He's going to visit. This is his Hail Mary. Go long. Biden says, go long. Can't go any longer than the Pope. I mean, that's long. The Pope, he's visiting the Pope. This is a big deal for Asian Americans, Filipinos especially. We'll talk about that. Right-wing cover, their pets. I'll explain. Talked about that briefly yesterday. Anyway, hi, it's Emil. This is what I call the micro talk show. The AAPI and the AAXs. That would be Asian American Pacific Islanders, or the NHAAPI, or the AAPI NHs. Get those native Hawaiians in there. The APINs. That would make us A pinheads. Or the AAXs, which is a different nomenclature or naming convention for the Asian American, then X fill in your ethnicity. So I would say, oh, you're Asian American Hmong, AAHs, the Ahs. Oh, no, the Ahs, or the Asian American Japanese, the Aj, AAJ. I'm an Asian American Filipino, AAFs, the AFs. Anyway, it's a way to get the Asian American and the ethnicity in there. I think it's important sometimes. And if you're neither or none of those things, you certainly are an ALL. All's the rest of you. You're welcome. I mean, this is in English. It's our language here in America. And we talk about the issues that usually no one asks, an Asian American. I mean, that's the thing, WDAAT, what does an Asian American think about any of these issues? I mean, you look at all the polling, you look at all the surveys, never enough of a sample. Never enough to say, oh, this is what Asian Americans think. No. And so, hence, this show, I like to say, be here, bang the gong now. We're on Facebook. It's still Facebook. Don't call it Meta yet. I mean, they've changed the sign down there in Palo Alto, but don't call it. It's still Facebook. Facebook at emilguillermo.media. Also, I'm live there right now. We're live. But also later at amok.com, where I put all this stuff in the World Wide Web. Yeah, you say, Emil, you're here live. Yeah, live, 2 p.m. Pacific, live Monday through Friday. We do it live because if we did it any other way, well, you'd say, well, you could edit out. This way it's dangerous. This way it's for real. This way it's like it's what it is. You get it on the fly. It's not that I'm making it up, but it's spontaneous. It's real. It's authentic. And if you're seeing this on the replay, because there is that possibility, because I do replay it on these different platforms, you'd say, well, the chat's live, but the video's not live, Emil. Okay, yeah, but not right now, 2 p.m. Pacific. Now, you say, Emil, it's 1:56. Yeah, that's right, because this is, if you tuned in early, this is not like the football game where the players get up and they warm up before and they're throwing their passes and everything's perfect. This is kind of a warm up, but it's really more like the lanyap section, a little something extra. I'm going to give you a little something extra. I was on Twitter today, 18 million rising, right? Those folks on Twitter, they retweeted a poster of the World's Fair, the Philippine Exposition World's Fair, St. Louis, 1904, because this is kind of a big day for Filipino American History Month. First of all, it's the last week. We started it off in October 1st, and we had to share it with National Hispanic Heritage Month, because they start from September 15th to October 15th. And then, all right, so we start October 1st, Philippine American History Month, and it all just kind of blends in. Oh, well, your name's Guillermo, Emil, so, Hispanic heritage. Yeah, that Hispanic heritage is one thing. This is Asian American history, Filipino American history. So there's a difference. It's all inclusive, the history. And so when the October 15th comes around, it's all ours. We begin the celebration really in earnest at that point. And it was October 18th, 1587. That's when the first Filipinos arrived. And then we can't forget this other reason why October is special. Well, I mean, why history is special. The World's Fair, 1904 in St. Louis, the Philippine Exposition. So they tweet this out today, 18 million rising, those folks. It's great. And you can go to the Aldef blog. I wrote about this in 2019, where they put up a poster that I was bidding on eBay for. And there must have been some kind of historian or something with a little more money than I who was outbidding me for this sign. You want to see the poster, go to my July 22nd, 2019 column on the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund blog. And you'll see it. I mean, I've always heard about the 1904 World's Fair, but I never saw a program, never saw when the signage. But you see the signage and it hits you that here were the Filipinos brought from the Philippines to the United States essentially to sell imperialism and essentially to say, hey, we need to colonize these guys and gals from the Philippines, these savages. And the Filipinos had feathers and they had spears. They were portrayed as headhunters. 1,200 natives, 47 acres, 40 different tribes, 6 Philippine villages, 70,000 exhibits, 725 native soldiers. Come see them. They are savages. The savage part I tied in. The savage part is implied. Real headhunters. Come see the Filipinos. And that was it. I mean, the Filipino Exposition, euphemistically, is what it was called. But is there any doubt? These were human zoos. Look at the Filipinos. And in 2019, I did my Fringe show at the Capitol Fringe in DC, my one-man show, really talking about this and other things about the colonialism inherent in our past, in our background. But nothing says colonialism quite like the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis. One of those little known things that people don't really get. I mean, they don't really understand. World's Fair? You mean like what they have out there with the Mets? The World's Fair out there? Yeah, similar World's Fair. But think of it as in 1904, you got to think about the Judy Garland movie, Meet Me in St. Louis. It was that fair. Right there, Fair Park, Forest, I think it's Forest Park, right? It's a street that goes up to Washington University in St. Louis, where I went to graduate school, just briefly. But those grounds were the administration grounds for the fair. And you remember that Judy Garland movie, Meet Me in St. Louis, it ends up with them going to the fair. They don't mention the Filipinos. They don't mention, let's go see the Savages. And I know when I was there, I had no idea about the exposition. I was there in the late 70s, and I did not, no one ever told me about the World's Fair in 1904. I didn't really learn about it until much later in the 90s. But that is how slow it is for people to pick up on history. So when I saw that tweet today, 18 Million Rising putting out on Twitter about, here's why we celebrate Filipino American history. Look at this. And they showed that poster from the World's Fair. I had my chance to own it and possess it. I got outbid on eBay in 2019. Like I said, I was there at Washington, D.C. doing my one-man show at the Capitol Fringe, and I was engaged in this bidding war with I don't even know who it was, right? It's kind of blind bid. But some guy got it, gal, and I got pictures of it. I don't have the actual thing. But just remember, in the context of Asian American history, the 1904 World's Fair coincided with the Chinese exclusion process, which began in 1882, but it was renewed in 1892. They made Chinese immigration permanently illegal in 1902. And in part, Filipinos were brought in to replace Chinese labor. It's the reason the Filipino male to female ratio was 14:1. They were workers. They weren't bedroom workers. They were not intended to start families. And that's why, in 1930, these people came in, mostly men. 30,000 Filipino men showed up, mostly in California in 1930. And one of those was my father. That's how personal history gets. Anyway, read my column on the ALDEF blog, July 22nd, 2019. ALDEF is aaldef.org/blog. Just a reminder, as I saw that tweet, this is the thing about Twitter. If you've been in the news business as long as I have, the Twitter feed is sort of like, the teletype machine. They used to put them behind double glass doors so it didn't destroy your eardrums if you happen to sit next to the teletype machines. And one of my first jobs in journalism was to actually, I didn't rip. I ripped and gave the copy to the radio anchor at a San Francisco radio station, network place, and he would read it skillfully because that's what they ripped and they read. Such was the life in radio. I thought, wow, that's journalism? I got to do that. Anyway, I saw it on Twitter. Twitter is that that sort of provides that function right now of the teletype for all you old school journalists out there. Yeah, things are changing. Let's go into our show. Talk about Meta. Oh, the Meta thing. Facebook's in trouble. Facebook, and the rumors have been flying that Facebook was going to change its name. We were guessing, what were they going to change their name to? And I jokingly suggested maybe they call it Emil Guillermo. That would have been, people would say, what? Emil Guillermo. Meta. M-E-T-A is the name. And when I found out today, I said, what? Meta? People don't even really know truly what Meta is. They may know in conjunction with people saying, oh, that's so meta. Meaning, oh, so inside, so self-aware, so self-referential, so full of oneself. And I thought, well, I think it's linked, and the story show that Facebook has linked it to this new metaverse thing that they're doing, this virtual world. I don't know. If people think maybe this is Facebook's way out, saying, look, we're not a platform anymore. We don't want to be a platform. Let Facebook die a natural death. A natural death. We'll kill it, and we'll just do our meta, because, you look at the infinity sign, it's sort of like a bent infinity sign, two goggles or two spectacles, kind of like the eyes of T.J. Eichelberg. Oh, Emil, you can't just drop a Gatsby reference just like that. Oh, yes, I can. It's my show. The eyes of T.J. Well, that's where we're going now. It seems like, well, we can't make the real world good. We'll create a virtual world. So what's next? I mean, Mark Zuckerberg is going to give these goggles in the metaverse to all the homeless people who are camped under all the bridges and the roadways and the overpasses in California now. Give them the goggles so that they can see, hey, life really is much better in the metaverse. The real world sucks, but the metaverse is good. And get off Facebook. You don't need Facebook. Just put on these goggles. I don't get it. Don't understand. But, when you think about Facebook is, they got that weird logo now, right, with the goggles. They've already changed the sign on Hacker Way. And how can you doubt Facebook? I mean, Facebook, for the longest time, they said, well, we don't really know if we have revenue. We don't even know if we're going to make a profit. They're now generating more than $86 billion in annual revenue, serving more than 3.5 billion people globally. And they don't want the responsibility. They want to be a toy manufacturer. We're going to make these metaverse glasses. I don't know that regulation can't come soon enough. The idea, though, of meta, M-E-T-A, meta, like I said, it's usually this self-referential thing. People say it, oh, that's so meta, meaning, so inside. I think if Zuckerberg were sincere, he would have used meta from the Pali, M-E-T-T-A, meta, loving kindness, showing that there was some heart there, some heart in the digital capitalists, that they really had something deeper and more humanitarian in mind. Meta, M-E-T-T-A, loving kindness, compassion. That's the kind of penance that's deserved after all these things have been leaked out the last month in the Wall Street Journal. Then Frances Haugen came out, and more has come out. And the consortium have gotten the redacted papers. Facebook is like a runaway train. M-E-T-A, meta, isn't going to do it. M-E-T-T-A, meta, from the Pali, compassion, loving compassion for the people, that might do it. That's the kind of penance that Facebook deserves. But I'd settle for regulation. Here I am on Facebook. I'd settle for regulation because I'm the good guy on Facebook. I'm the guy who says, go vaccinate. Even your kids. I'm not the guy who says, oh, jab, jab, jab. No, I don't use the word jab. It's, you're getting inoculated. You're getting medicine. You're not getting a jab like it's some kind of like madcap fisticuff. You're endangering yourself. Anyway. Yeah. Facebook unleashed this all. And I think now they just want to get out of the platform business because there's a responsibility for being a platform. They don't want it. They want to be a toy company. Here, put on these glasses. The world is good. The world is good in the metaverse. Okay. Meta. M-E-T-A. No, M-E-T-T-A. Meta. A little more compassion for the world, please. All right. Speaking of compassion, Joe Biden is saying a Hail Mary on Build Back Better. Or he's doing a Hail Mary. He's going along. He's going to go visit the Pope. This is good news for Filipino Americans, Asian Americans who are Catholics, that, the second Catholic president ever, the first being Kennedy. He was no saint. I guess compared to Kennedy, Biden is slightly more saintly. But Biden's in a bind. He's going to go see the Pope. I don't know what the Pope's going to say, except try to convince conservative clerics who want to take communion away from Biden to say, go light on the guy. He's doing well. He's doing good. I don't know. Are they going to mention pedophile priests? I don't think they're going to talk about pedophile priests. I like Francis too, but Francis is in a kind of a bind. I don't think he really has lived up 100% to the hopes that we had for Francis, for a different kind of Catholic Church. I think COVID also hurt because they had to admit that, in special circumstances, you don't have to go to Mass. You're not going to burn up and go to hell. It meant that the flock dispersed even more, and now they're trying to get them back, kind of, but we're not out of the pandemic yet. So the pandemic has thrown the church, or has been a setback for the Catholic Church worldwide. So Biden's there on his way to the G20, on his way to the climate talks in Glasgow. He's going to Scotland. And he left today kind of in a flurry, meeting with the Mansion cinema types who are still, meeting with the House, who look like they might vote. Nancy Pelosi was surely very confident today. I like Nancy Pelosi. I've said this before. She's a politician to the core. And it means that she's going to do things occasionally that you don't like or that you don't trust. But basically, you have to like her. That's the way the game is played. And I think what we're seeing the hard part of politics. People have to get with the program or you're out of a job. I mean, and it's not because of the people you're debating with. It's because your constituency is going to say, well, what's going on here? You guys aren't united. This is really the infrastructure of the Democratic Party is falling apart is the problem. And you've got the progressives I love the progressives. AOC, Pramila Jayapal. Jayapal is really, she's out front. That's great. But all the outspoken progressives, great. But at some point, you have to realize that, okay, and I know Bernie Sanders has been, let's see what we got here. Biden came out this morning and said, we got a framework. We don't have an agreement. We have a framework. Okay, a framework. Take that to the bank. And no one trusts the senators like Joe Manchin or Kristen Sinema that they're going to do the right thing. And this is all based on two bits of proposal, right? There's the spending bill, which is, and then there's the infrastructure, the hard infrastructure and the soft infrastructure. And the New Deal is now down from 6 trillion down to about 1.75 trillion. So it's not as much of a deal as we had hoped, but it's something. So either you say we got to inch the ball forward, or you say, screw it, I'm going to use my leverage and I'm not budging, which is what Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema are saying in the Senate side. And on the House, it's what the progressives are saying. And if they're at loggerheads, everyone on the Democratic side is going to lose. And that's the problem. So who's going to be emotionally mature and say, hey, I'm going to take the heat? I mean, Manchin, who in the last 48 hours has been revealed to be not the kind of guy you really should like. His wife is his daughter's a lobbyist. His wife works for a chemical company. He's beholden to the energy companies. He'd be out of a job. But you know what? If he got voted out, it'd probably be better for the people of West Virginia if they voted for a better guy. But unfortunately, if they threw out Manchin, they'd probably get a Trump type. And Kristen Sinema, oh Lord, she's the worst. Who knows what she stands for? And the progressives, the idealists, are scratching their heads saying, what is wrong with politics? And if you think they're saying that, what do you think the people outside of politics observing this all are saying? So President Biden really needs a good blessing from the Pope in Italy, because I know he's hoping to say, hey, I come from America with these good tidings. Look at what America is doing for climate. Look what America is doing to show the world that we can build back better our infrastructure. We are growing again. We are alive. We're wonderful again. No, not so wonderful. Not so wonderful. And so I don't think anyone really knows what's going to happen, right? Because Nancy Pelosi came out. I mean, to Biden's credit, before he left, or, today, he got out there and he said, look, this thing isn't going to tax the middle class. We're taxing the rich. We're making the rich pay their fair share. Pay your fair share. I mean, he was saying all the right things. It made sense. But we're still pared down from a $6 trillion plan that we had hoped for down to a $1.75 trillion plan. I mean, that's like, I used to tell my kids, oh, we're going to go down to Baskin Robbins to get some ice cream. And then when we got close to the mall or to the shopping center, I said, oh, no, let's just go get some ice cream at the grocery store. And then their hearts would sink. And they would say, oh, Dad, don't get our hopes up. That's sort of what it's like to have a $6 trillion package promise, oh, the greatest thing since the New Deal, and then have it whittled down to 1.75 trillion. Pelosi's a politician, a loyal politician. She said, this is full of our democratic values. Well, what about community college? These the issues, the things that are in this package are full of our values. Maybe not the specifics we want now, but they're full of our values. I like Nancy Pelosi. She had a line. She said, "I trust President Biden. I trust President Biden." Yeah, but I don't trust Senator Manchin. I don't trust Senator Sinema. And the Democrats are going to have this, have their own come to Jesus moment before Biden does in front of the Pope, when they understand that, hey, we may never get or never be in this kind of position again. I mean, this is a unique time, and we can't get it together. We better come away with something. That's not the sound of a compromiser. That's the sound of a realist who says, if we don't come away with something, we may be out of a job. And that, my friends, is Politics 2021. It's a strange calculus, you know. We thought, oh, Biden, Harris, they're in. The good guys are in, the bad guys are out. It's going to be so easy. No, it's not. And the bad guys haven't given up. So that brings me to Nick Kristof. Nick Kristof is one F, Kristof, not Kristof. Nick Kristof is a award-winning, or was, and you can see in his column that publishes on the 28th, it says Nick Kristof was an award-winning journalist or award-winning columnist. That's just so you know, he's no longer, and they put it under guest opinion, not his column. It's just a little bit of realism for people who are used to seeing Kristof's name and byline in the New York Times for 37 years. I don't know Kristof personally. We've never met, although we have some things in common, some friends in common. And we're in journalism, although he's in a much higher place at the New York Times. When I first, I think, encountered him was in 1989, when he and his wife, Cheryl Wu Dunn, were husband and wife covering China for the New York Times. And I was at NPR, and I interviewed one of them. I think I was part of a team interview with both of them. They're talking about Tiananmen Square. One of the biggest stories that I was a part of, you know, as part of the network covering it, is the host of All Things Considered. And so that was the first time we encountered. And also, you know, I mentioned Kristof, being that he is kind of Asian American by marriage to a Chinese American. He's got some half Asian kids like me. And so we don't really, like I said, we don't know each other and we don't communicate, but I read his column and I applaud the issues and the stands that he's taken over the years. But we had a little disagreement in 2015. And you can go to the Aldef blog and see that. He did a column where he talked about the Asian American advantage. And it was a way to kind of refrain the model minority. And so why is it that Asian Americans are so successful? And I know a lot of people, I mean, maybe I misread it, but I know a lot of people were upset because of how he posed the question, as if how to explain Asian American advantage, and is discrimination against Asian Americans, is it over? And of course, it's not. And I made my case. He even quoted uh, two sociologists out of Columbia saying, well, Asians are successful because they have social capital. They work together, right? Community, working with other members of the community, and to the degree they have that, they're able to really shine, to excel. But when you're in far-flung communities where there's no Asian American, forebears, who've been there before and have started things, and there's no network, it's much harder. And so anyway, we kind of disagreed. He got a lot of flack from some community members who also saw it my way. That is he recasting the model minority myth to say that, hey, we have come this far and it's no longer the case? No, it's still the case. But this is the thing: when you are an opinion columnist, is there not a better, or is that not the best job in the world? You have the credibility of the institution, the New York Times. You get to stand on their shoulders. You get to go anywhere you want to go. You get to do any story you want to do. You get to report. And then, because you're a columnist, you get to opine, which means you get to say what you think, which is what journalists never get to do unless you're an opinion columnist. And it's even better if you're an opinion columnist for the New York Times. So I always thought that, wow, all right, so I tangle with Nick Kristof a little bit in that one instance, that one issue. But, he was off to another issue soon after that. And he's a good guy. No animus between myself and Kristof. This is the job, right? You get out there on an issue, you make your points, you accept input, you either change your stance or you are intractable, whatever. This is the job of the opinion journalist, right? But it's a combination of being there with the Times and having the resources and being out there. That's what made it the greatest job in the world. And in his farewell column, he talks about that. He talks about William Safire, who was a guy who crossed the line a couple of times between journalism and politics, and finally journalism and PR. He said, well, why would I want to leave to join a government? Because the Times is the best job in the world. It was. You get to influence thinkers, activists, the public, and the power players who read the Times. So I just kept thinking, well, that's cool. We had this little run-in to 2015. He went on to do other things, other great stories. The great stories that or great columns that I thought I wrote were not the columns about issues so much. I mean, not about people in trouble or going to the front lines. I really liked his columns about taking his kids hiking. He would go on these hikes with his kids, show them nature, show them how to be a responsible individual, a responsible citizen to the environment, to nature. It was also about how to be a parent. And I appreciated those columns, probably more than some of the columns about issues. But, he'd take a stand. He'd find something that he put out there in the New York Times. I mean, non-Asian American issues, like when he was talking about, the Asian American advantage. But so now he's leaving, and, he's leaving because he's crossing that line. There's that line for journalists. It's like that velvet rope, or that police line. Well, you get to cross the police line with your press pass, and you get to cross the velvet rope when you have a press pass. But you're a member of the press, and you feel like, oh, I don't really belong here on the other side of the velvet rope. But I'll take my notes and I'll watch the people who are doing their thing, because they're the players. They're affecting change. And then when you realize that they're the doers, you realize, what are you doing? Are you doing enough? If you're just watching the power players, are you doing enough? And should you be doing more than just pushing opinion? Or should you be doing more than just reporting fact, or being the fly on the wall, or being not necessarily the fly on the wall, but the silent person taking notes while the actors are acting and doing their thing? And I think at some point, if you're honest, if you're a journalist, you realize it's not enough just to give the facts. It's not enough just to give your opinion. That you have to do something more, like take action, create policy, take responsibility. And that's why sometimes when you're on the media side, you say, I need to run for governor. That's what Nick Kristof is doing. He's going to run for governor of Oregon. And in his farewell column, he talks about the people he grew up with who aren't with him anymore because they died because of some weird policies. Why is that? How can he really have an impact on people's lives? And I suppose that, yeah, at some point you got to take a stand. At some point you take a stand, you cross the line, you say, all right, I'm not a journalist. I'm an actor. I'm an actor in these people's lives and the policies that affect them, and I'm running for office. Because that's what you do in public. That's what you do in public life. But then remember all the stuff I said about all the crazy, lousy things that politicians have to do. Like Biden, Pelosi, and the progressives, and Manchin, and Sinema. And do you even like that? Is that the world? I mean, that's the thing. Look, I crossed the line once. I worked for Congressman Norman Mineta. I didn't even last a year. 103rd Congress. I just didn't. It wasn't enough for me. For me. But maybe for some people like Nick Kristof, maybe they see that it's not about, I'll tell you why it wasn't enough for me. I wanted to talk about Asian American stuff. Forget policy. I don't have to push it into the goal line or over the goal line. I just needed to have people talk about us. And no one was. But I'm glad that there are people who have a political bent. They'll know not to go amok. They'll know not to say the wrong thing at the wrong time. And they may be able to get something done in that arena. Maybe that's Nick Kristof. But I kind of got his feeling reading that last column that he'd come to that point where he was ready. And that journalism wasn't enough. And that he had to do more. Push opinion aside and actually take some responsibility to getting the job done. For his beliefs, for his values, for his kids, for a generation, for his hometown, Yamhill, Oregon. I just think, yeah, we had a little public disagreement in 2015. It wasn't a big deal. That's what it is, an opinion, right? You think this, I think that. But he's decided now, after 37 years at the Times, it's time to be a little something more. So, congratulations to Nick Kristof for leaving the best job in the world, or one of the best jobs in the world. But he hasn't won yet. He's running for governor of Oregon. I can't even tell you who the governor of Oregon is now. I don't know who the governor. I know Senator Ron Wyden. He's been an Oregon politician for the longest time. And I remember there was an Asian American who was a congressman out of Oregon, but I know nothing about Oregon politics. So chances are, I know Oregon, land of the vegan donut, Portland. I know that they are more liberal than not, and yet I know they have a really racist. If you go to the Oregon Historical Society Museum, which is a great museum in Portland, they've got a racist past in Oregon, and racist laws had to be excised out of their constitution. But here's a guy like Nick Kristof going out there who wants to be governor of Oregon. And I will say this: you don't leave the best job in the world to run for politics unless you have some intelligence. I mean, like what's going on the ground, and you have some kind of sense that you have a shot to win. I think coming from the New York Times, having a name, that's going to help them. It's not television, but it's going to help them build credibility. If that still makes any sense anymore in politics. That's what happens after the post-Trump era. Lies are more powerful than ever. The truth is harder, which is why it's probably better to be a journalist than it is a politician, because we need more truth tellers. But if you want to be active, if you want to take a real role, that's where politics come in. The other thing about politics, and when I was on the inside looking at politics, can you withstand the scrutiny? Can you withstand the fine-tooth comb that gets dragged over the entirety of your life? That's one thing. And the second thing, can you raise money? Because it's all about the money. More so if you're governor. I know that congressmen, they spent a bulk of their time on the phone begging for money. And that's why, for someone like myself, who has considered politics in the past, speeches, I can give speeches. But the freedom to say, to influence, to talk, it just seems that in terms of real liberation, going from journalism to politics, you're just putting on a new set of chains. But what can I say? Good luck to Nick Kristof. My liberal friends will miss you. My conservative friends will say, good riddance. But my conservative friends have called me because my wife has appeared on Tucker Carlson. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to drag her off Tucker Carlson. Get off there. But, he's got 3.5 million people watching him, including my conservative friends. And my wife, who works for PETA, she has found the thing that brings the elephant and the donkey together, and that is each other's pets, or as PETA would say, companion animals. And I I'm willing to think that maybe that is a way to say, hey, these right wingers, they're not all so bad. They got a problem, but they're not all so bad. These right wingers, but maybe it could be cover for how bad they are on human policy, on real people issues. Oh, but they get all riled up about the animals. They get all riled up. Oh, Fauci. They go after Fauci. But they're all riled up about these experiments on animals. Well, is nonpartisan, PETA. But they've been talking about trying to change the way science is done in the United States with animal experimentation for years. But suddenly now the conservative media silo has glommed on to these stories about animal experimentation that it's funny how they cover it, but the New York Times doesn't. Columnists like Nick Kristof. And that's one of the things about the power of that position he had. He got to decide about what gets put out there in front of people. And just like Tucker Carlson gets to decide what gets put out there in front of people. Unfortunately, everyone's a single silo news consumer. We need some cross siloing. We need some lumberjacks to cut down the silos and like have them go horizontal and intersect so that people see, oh, look what's here. Look what's over here. Instead of like straight up and down. That's the problem with news in America. But Nick Kristof is no longer in the news. He's going to go off to be governor. Let's hope he's successful. But then he'll come back. He'll be a commentator, just like Jennifer Granholm, right? Former governor. Now she was an commentator. Now she's back at the Department of Energy. She's crossed the line a couple of times. Anyway, so yeah, I think that when it comes to look for those stories though, because it's interesting as you see stories in the right wing media. Those of you who are of that persuasion, look to see how they love their animals. They love their animals, but black people they don't like as much. Oh, Filipinos, Asian, they don't like as much either. Immigrants, they don't like them at all. But their pets, oh, they love their pets. They love their pets, but people on the southern border, little kids hanging on to their mother's coattails, oh, separate them. But maybe they're more sympathetic about veal calves being separated from their moms, monkeys being separated from their mothers. Maybe. I mean, that would be a step in the right direction. But I'm telling you, if we recognize it positively as common ground, imagine if we can find common compassion, maybe there could be a trickle down to some of these human issues. Maybe. It's the only bipartisan thing out there now. If you listen to the PETA podcast, my wife talks about an FDA proposal, a way to revamp the FDA that brings together a bill brought forth by Cory Booker and Rand Paul. That is an odd couple. Cory Booker and Rand Paul. It can happen. And if it can happen there, let's cross our fingers it can happen on the Build Back Better. We don't have to have the Pope's blessing. We can build back better. I'll tell you, it's going to take someone wants to play this. It's been called the game of chicken, right? Between the progressives and the mansion cinema crowd. And someone is going to just have to say, we're on the same team. I mean, even Obama has come out. Biden used his Obama card today. I don't know if that's going to work. But in the end, it's like what Nancy Pelosi said. I trust President Biden. We'll see if there's a vote of confidence in Congress for President Biden. All right, that's our show for today. Hey, look, thank you for joining me. I like to say, be here, bang the gong now. I'm here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific Live. If you missed any or all of this, if you missed all of it, well, hey, just use your finger on the Twitter thing and like push it back. Let's go to the beginning. Usually replays are up at amok.com. You can check out emilguillermo.media and check out the replays there. If you made it this far, you know that it's no mistake that I say instead of Meta, M-E-T-A, Facebook should have been called M-E-T-T-A, because I am one of those meditators. Yeah, I'm a meditator. And specifically, a loving kindness meditator. Because it seems like that's the thing that makes the world go round. And it could for you if you're kinder to yourself. And if you show some self-compassion and self-love and then send that out to the world, it comes back to you. That means even showing some love to Tucker Carlson or whatever he goes by. The guy who used to wear a bow tie and now wears a tie. Hey, follow us on Twitter at Emil Amok. You can see us there. See more at amok.com. And you can read me on the ALDEF blog, aaldef.org/blog. I'm Emil Guillermo. This is the Micro Talk Show of the AAPI and the AAX. And all the rest of you. And as I said, the real thing here is the meditative moment is be kind, show compassion. So, as I say to you, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time.